It is almost February, and this is the first time that we're seeing Arsenal take on Man City this season. And as you can see on your screen right now, there is still probably about 6, 7, 8 minutes to go, including extra time. Oh my God, we're through. Oh, I thought I'd start recording now because I've got a few things I want to talk about. But also I'm hoping that maybe I'll be able to react to Arsenal equalising. Oh, it would have been offside anyway. So yeah, as it stands, Man City are going through. If we were to score, it would go to a replay and we would have to play Man City. I think it'd be twice in 1 week in February, both at the Emirates. So part of me kind of hopes that we wouldn't get a replay. But of course, I don't want the team to lose. The FA Cup is our competition. We've won it a record amount of times. And this season is no different, in my opinion. We should be trying to win the FA Cup. However, we've just stumbled across Man City. It's a little bit unfortunate in terms of getting them as our draw. Oh my God. Oh, sorry if I react like that. We're actually playing quite well with a few minutes to go. I haven't got any stats up right now, so I thought you'd rather watch kind of what's going on as I'm watching it. The timer that you're seeing on your screen is pretty much exactly where I am in the game. It's a tough one, really, because I feel like it's... Firstly, it's very strange that we haven't played them yet. So this is the first time we're seeing the best two teams in the league, arguably, going head-to-head. And, of course, this isn't the Premier League. Arsenal came in with a weaker side. We made 6 changes for this game. Man City, I think, made a couple of changes, but you could make arguments it was almost full strength. But the thing is, with Man City, they've got a much bigger squad. They can potentially put up a couple of their fringe players, their benched players, but they look like first-team players because they're that good. Okay, so I'm not saying it's Man City's full-strength side, but they've definitely gone with a stronger side than we have. And I think that is how I'm going to describe this game right now. I made a couple of notes because I really wanted to make sure I explained what I meant, but... Today, we're seeing the difference between, and this is Arsenal I'm talking about, the difference between A-team players and B-team players. The difference in quality when certain players are off the pitch and certain players are on the pitch, it's quite worrying. Now, good news, because I am going to be talking about Partey. He's gone off at half-time, and you can see there's a noticeable gap. Well, it's not just noticeable, it's a chasm. It's unbelievable just how much Partey brings this team. But I've just seen over the last kind of 6 hours or so that Arsenal are heavily linked with a move for Caicedo, the young Ecuadorian that plays at Brighton. Everyone, all the top teams are looking to sign him. He is an unbelievable player, just 21 years old. I think Brighton signed him for 5 million. And it's come out today that Arsenal were tracking him before, maybe just didn't feel like he was the right fit at the time. And now they're putting in a bid of around 60 million. So a little bit more than 5, which was just a year or two ago. So I guess what we can take from that is Arsenal want to bring in midfield reinforcements. I think El Neni is potentially out for the rest of the season with a knee problem. That hasn't been confirmed yet, but there are reports that he's done his knee and it's not good. And of course, we are left with Lokonga trying to do Partey's role, which just isn't going to work. Hey, let's recall Patino. Realistically, we know it as Arsenal fans. I think everyone up and down the country could just look at Arsenal's team and just see how light it is in midfield. And it's clear the board know. Mikel clearly knows we need a midfielder. So what's wrong with Sambi? What is wrong with Sambi? There's a few things, okay? Obviously, he's not as good at football as Partey. To put it bluntly, he's just not. I'm not saying Sambi's a bad player. I'm not saying he's not good enough to play for Arsenal. I think that he could become a fantastic player, but you can tell he probably does need a loan. The biggest thing for me, though, it's not just the fact that his ability is a substantial drop from Partey. It's what he does to the surrounding players. When Sambi is playing, watch Xhaka. Watch how Xhaka has to change his game. he can't play as effectively as he normally does. He can't drift as much. He can't rely on that magic number 5 Partey to just do two-man's jobs. You know, it's unbelievable how much work Partey puts in. And I'm not saying Sambi can't do that ever. I'm saying he can't do that now. He's not at that level. And also, it's when Sambi wants the ball, you can see he's a bit nervous, but he wants to get the ball. And I completely understand that. Like, we're playing against City. This is not a team to make a mistake against, right? But you can tell that other players don't really want to give him the ball as much. They know the difference between Partey receiving a pass and Sambi receiving a pass. I mean, it has to be way more accurate. I feel like they fizz it more as well. It's a tricky one, okay? I really don't want to dig Sambi out because it's not his fault, but we can so clearly see we need someone in there. So Sambi, no problem with him. He's done okay. I don't think he's done badly. Just noticing, obviously, the difference between him and Partey. I mean, Partey literally is the heart of this team. And I think if anyone was to get injured, I'd absolutely choose him last. He's arguably the most important player. Zinchenko coming on. What are we going to do about Tierney? Tierney's a really good left back. Don't get me wrong. He's better defensively than Zinchenko. But Zinchenko's better at everything else. Absolutely every single part of a left back's game, other than the actual defending, the actual defensive and how quick he is, maybe. I mean, Tierney's definitely quicker than Zinchenko, but every other aspect of Zinchenko's game is on a different level to Tierney. Technically, miles better. Experience, he is more experienced. He's got a little bit more about him in our system. And I think that's key. So seeing Zinchenko came on made a huge difference. I don't think Tierney's got a massively long future here. I've got to be honest, guys. I think he might be gone in the summer. And I'd be sad about that because he is a great player. But if Arteta really wants to build a team around this system that he's playing, with Zinchenko playing such a vital role, we need to bring someone else in that can do that job. Because we've seen it today. I don't think Tierney can. He's much better as a fullback, you know, just getting up and down the line, crossing it in, defending. He's a bit more physical. Zinchenko is basically a midfielder playing at left back. So that's something to look at. Holding. I mean, he's up against one of the best players in the world in Haaland. Never, ever in a million years going to be an easy game for him. Came off at half-time and Saliba has done really well. The difference as well, in terms of the confidence that other players have around Saliba to give him the ball, yeah, very, very clearly, Holding is not quite at that level. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. He's a squad player, deserves game time in cup games and stuff like that. But you can see, you know, we can't rely on Holding to be our main Saliba backup. We will need to bring in someone else at some point. And obviously, Kivior is left-footed, so he's going to be Gabriel's main backup. I made one last point here as we're coming towards the end of the game. We've already played a little bit extra because City were wasting time. Does this result matter? That's what I wrote here. Does this result really matter? And I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. When City scored... Oh, I didn't mean to drop that. When City scored, and by the way, it was a fantastic goal. Ake, wow, with his right foot. I wasn't exactly mad. And I feel really bad about this, but hear me out, guys. There it is, full time. It's very obvious that Arteta does not want to focus the FA Cup. He took off Saka, for example. If you take off Saka, I mean, you're basically saying to everyone watching, we're not really going for it. We'd rather rest him, make sure he's safe. And, you know, Vieira was playing right wing at the end. And I don't know. I think we've got bigger things right now. We're not meant to be top of the league right now. The fact that we're there, we're doing everything we can to stay there. And if that means putting up a weaker team and potentially, obviously not on purpose, but losing this game wasn't going to be the end of the world. We now have Premier League and Europa League to focus on. And I think the worst thing possible would be to play our first team, our strongest team today against Man City. And obviously if we win, great. Okay, and if we go on to win the FA Cup, great. But imagine if we picked up an injury to Partey. He came off at half-time. I think he got a knock in the ribs, I read somewhere, and it was just precautionary. He was walking around. He was on the pitch just now. I just saw him. He's fine. He's going to be fine. All right, touch wood, he's fine. But imagine, would it have been worth it? The FA Cup is not what we're looking for right now. It would have been a nice addition, put it that way. I feel like Arteta's done the right thing. He's gone with a slightly weaker side, not a completely weaker side. And we've been able to, I think, do pretty well with a weaker side against a strong City side at the Etihad. We've lost 1-0 to a centre-back shooting with his right foot. Shout out to Turner as well. I thought he was pretty good today. Yeah, I think to answer my own question, does this really matter? Not really. But obviously if we won it, I'd be saying, of course it matters. Of course FA Cup still means everything. But I would gladly take a loss here if it meant that we can beat City in the Premier League, all right? And we're playing them soon. Let's have a look at the stats. Let me just pull up the stats here before we end. So full-time 1-0. Here are the lineups if you haven't seen them yet. You can tell, obviously, Arsenal have not gone with the first team there, whereas City, you could argue, Ake, Stones, Akanji, and Lewis has been playing recently. But, you know, let's call that 3 out of the back 5 first-team players at the moment. Gundogan, Rodri, Grealish, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Haaland. You could argue all of those guys are first-team starters. And then you look at the Arsenal side with Trossard. I mean, Nketiah is a starter at the moment, but normally isn't. Trossard is not a starter. Vieira, not a starter. Tomiyasu, not a starter. Holding, not a starter. Tierney, definitely not a starter. And Turner, not a starter. So, yeah, I think we've done quite well. Genuinely, I'm not sad about this. As you can see here, it was not an enthralling game of football. Possession's pretty tight. They've had a couple more chances than us. In the first half, Arsenal were, I think, the better side and actually had better chances. We could have won the game. We've lost it. We move on. I'm honestly not going to be upset about this. I think we did a pretty good job. We'll jump into the fixture list here because we've got Everton on Saturday next week. So we're not playing for a good week now, which is quite nice. Early kickoff, though. I hate those. Brentford the weekend after that. And then this is the big one. So as I've said in the last few Operation Arsenals, if we can beat Everton and Brentford and get a result against City, I will then believe it. And I caught some flack for saying I still don't think Arsenal are going to win the league. I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, Arsenal going to win the league when I don't actually believe it. I'm telling you, right? 3 points there, 3 points there. And if we get 3 points against Man City, I will gladly admit I now believe that Arsenal will win the title. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, it doesn't take a lot for Arsenal to potentially have a little slip up. All it would take is maybe like a stupid 0-0 draw against Bournemouth where we pepper them but just can't score. And then we slip up against a Fulham, struggle against Palace, or Zaha gets a last-minute penalty. And all it can be is just a couple of results that go wrong, you know? So I'm just being careful. I'm being cautious. But realistically, win, and I will be elated. Yeah, let's see what happens. I'm not jumping ahead of myself here. Let's see what happens against Everton with potentially Sean Dyche coming in. He should be in soon. A couple new signings that Everton will make. Brentford, we should win that. We really should at home. Oh, it's going to get exciting. I'm going to do a transfer video soon. I'm going to wrap up some of the transfer rumours before the window shuts. I think I'll do a transfer window stream. I've done that for the last few years. Hopefully Arsenal do bring in a central midfielder. But for now, guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.